Hey everyone, Repoze here, and today I wanted to make a video on what I think the best classes are gonna be next swipe, in each game mode. So I wanted to make a tier list. I'm gonna make a tier list for solo, duo, and trio. And I first got this idea. I saw a party chip video the other day, and I realized that I've never made like a tier list for this game. And I think right now I have a pretty good read on the meta, so. And I'm bored waiting for the wipe to happen, so I figured I would make this video. Yeah. So first I'm just gonna say, no matter what like tier I put a class in this, I don't think any class is like completely unplayable in any like of the game modes. Even though I think some might be like really weak. If you're really good at the game and you understand your class well, I think you can play any class in any mode, solo, duo, trio, and I think it's fine. Also, I'm not gonna rate Druid because we don't really know that like everything about it yet. And one last thing is that there's some changes right now on the test server that would affect this tier list, but I'm not 100% sure if they're actually gonna be implemented with the wipe, because they could just change the numbers around. They could remove certain things. So I'm just gonna go based off. Right now, the last patch of the current wipe, what I think the power level is of each class in each game mode. And yeah, I'm gonna do each class left to right will matter on the tier list, so the farthest to the left in the column will be the strongest. And one more thing I was gonna say. Oh yeah, the way I'm kind of rating these classes is how good I think they are in each mode. Granted, the player playing them is pretty good. So like, I'm not saying it's the like how strong the class is on average, or like even like someone playing like perfectly. But I'd say an average good player, the class played pretty well, not perfect, not bad, but like pretty well. That's kind of my rating of the class. So above average, I would say. Because if I had to rate the classes based on if they're played perfectly, it would be probably a completely different list. I mean, honestly, it'd probably be like Ranger and Thanos tier for every game mode. Because I mean, if you play Ranger perfectly, you just headshot everyone and kill them in like 2 hits, right? But obviously, that's not like realistic. There's human error, and no one is ever gonna be that good. And yeah, let me get started. So I'm gonna start off with solos, and I'll go through. I guess I'll just put each class. I might end up moving it around, so I'll have like sort of a final like picture of how strong I think everything is. And I'll just start left to right on the bottom here, and with Barbarian. So Barbarian and solos, I'd probably put it in about B tier. I don't think it's that strong. A lot of people for some reason think Barbarian is like really strong in solos. And when it's good, it is good. Like when you're in an actual melee fight 1v1, Barbarian is pretty good for most classes. The thing is, it's the class with the least amount of range in the whole game. And, well, arguably, Cleric might have worse, but it has either the least amount or the second least amount of range in the whole game, which is really bad with the current state of the game. You kind of need range to win. And Barbarian just can't really do that much. It's kind of one-dimensional of a class. Just run in and swing and pray. And yeah, I'd probably put it in B tier. Next we have Bard, and he's going straight into Thanos tier in the solos. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but because I've seen some people say, oh, Bard is like gear dependent. Bard without gear is really bad. But that is just not true at all. It's actually a complete lie. It's probably the best solo class without gear, and the best solo class with gear, and with medium gear. It's the best solo class. Bard just has a million like options for what he can do with all these songs. And yet there's so many unique things to Bard that are just so good. Like being able to run through doors, like you can just play the song, the door opening song, and you don't have to ever like stop to open a door is really good. If you're ever getting pressured on another class, you need to open a door, you're just like a free ranger shot or a free fireball to the head while you're opening it. There's like other little things, like that's not the reason he's in Thanos tier, but he has so many little things. Like for one more little thing, for example, is that he has Shriek and Banshee's Howl and Lament, And these AoE songs are so good if you're playing really careful. You can just play around doorways with these songs and no one can play right up close to a doorway. You can kind of like clear out angles with these songs. You can't completely clear them because you can hit someone and then they could still just be hiding or whatever. If they're invis, like a rogue or whatever. But yeah, Bard is just Thanos tier. I mean, he has... The survival bow is like the best range weapon pretty much in solos. It's insane. He can get really high PDR, really high health, really strong, good move speed. The class is Thanos, straight up. Next we have Cleric. Directly into the do not play this tier. As I said at the start, I mean, you can play any class if you're really good and you can make it work. But Cleric in solos is really bad. Yeah, it's just bad. I don't even know what to say. Has like no range, really slow. But if you build to be fast, you're kind of just like a worse version of Wizard always, or Warlock. If you're playing like fast Cleric with spells, you're still not really strong at all, and you die really fast, and it's just horrible. So yeah, shout out to the solo Clerics out there. I should have said this at the start, but this is like a PvP tier list, by the way. It's not like... If it was a tier list based on AP, which is like collecting treasure and killing mobs, then it would be a bit different. But yeah, this is PvP. Next we have Fighter. I'm putting Fighter in a S tier. I think Fighter is really good in solos. He has a lot of builds, which is really nice. I think the best solo build is the Dagger, like the Rondel Buckler in the main hands, or in the first slot, whatever. And then Survivable in the second slot. I feel like that build is just insane. Because you can just go like full PDR Fighter with that build, and then you have a Survival Bow to deal with casters, which is really nice. But even if you don't do that, Slayer Fighter is really good. Full PDR Fighter, just like default, is like not that good. It's pretty bad, I think. But if you avoid anyone who has magic damage, that build's actually pretty good too. Yeah, Fighter's really good. It's really good. Has a lot of options. You can build them how you want. Not many bad matchups. You can kind of build to have like no bad matchups in my opinion. And yeah, just solid class. Ranger, I think I'm gonna put below the Barb. Okay, that people are not gonna be happy about this opinion, but the thing with Ranger is that in solos, it's almost impossible to like move around the map. So you can pick Ranger and then you can like clear out the room you spawn in and then like one room next to you. And if you ever want to like move further into the map past that, every time you open a door or go into a new room, you're kind of just praying that there isn't a fighter waiting around the corner with a sprint, or like a rogue invis, or a barbarian with Achilles. Because if you can't fight back in melee range on Ranger, because you don't have any abilities that like make you stronger in melee. Like you can have a spear, but that's not good enough, to be honest. So like, I just feel like in solos it's just horrible that you just can't move around the map. And if you have a nice like open area and you get free shots on someone, like it can be good. I mean, if you're really good at the class, I do think it's like really strong. But it still has the same problems where it's just impossible to like move around the map, which I think is just horrible in solos. You're kind of just like spawn locked the whole match. The only thing about Ranger is like it is really frustrating when they're posted up, they have perfect zone, traps placed, and like infinite room to kite. Then it can feel like there's like nothing you can do versus the class. But they kind of just, to get into that position, it's like rare. And also, let me just say that part of the reason I think this class is so bad is like, well, I don't know if this is a good logic, but every time I see an actual like, geared Ranger in solos, they're just cheating. They just have ESP, because the problem that I said earlier where you can't move around the map, if you have ESP, then that kind of alleviates the entire weakness of the class, and then it's kind of just God mode. So like, I would throw Ranger in a Thanos tier if you're just hacking and you can see where everyone is. But if you're playing normally and you don't have just, you know, infinite info of the game and where everyone's at, then I think it's pretty weak. Pretty bad class for solos. So we have Rogue next, and I'm gonna throw in an S tier. And This might be, I think some people are probably going to guess that I was going to put it lower, because, you know, I'm biased rogue player. I do think it's a bit worse than fighter, because it's kind of hard. It has a similar problem as ranger, where it's a bit harder to move around the map, but at least on rogue, you can fight people in melee range. Even if they get the jump on you, it's not just immediately over. I think the build for sure is double hand crossbow, and you just play kind of poke rogue, and it's really, really strong. You're just so fast. You can move around the map fast. You can fight almost any class. You have cutthroat, which is really, really, really good. Cutthroat is a really, really good of an ability, and so is Thrust actually. I think in solos, rogue is just pretty solid. You can weave in and out of fights, and when you're in solos, you can keep pressure on people with double hand crossbow. Rogue has some other problems in the other modes, but yeah, I think class is very good. I think the hide build, if you go like some people go like stiletto main hand or first slot, and then they go like rapier hand crossbow. I don't think that's as good as double hand crossbow. I would probably move them down if that was the only build, but yeah, I think this double hand crossbow build is just really insane in solos right now, and makes rogue pretty good. Then we have warlock, and I would probably put warlock. I wouldn't say it's better than fighter. It's definitely an S tier class, but I don't know if I would put it above or below rogue. I'd say it's below rogue. Warlock's really good in solos though. It's really, really good. The caster build especially, the warlock is the only class in the entire game that has some sort of method of like scouting, which is so insane in solos. It's so good. Because if you play the class like really patiently and you just Hydra every single corner, you can just never die ever. Because no one will ever be able to get the jump on you. So if you play safe and you do that, and you play properly, you can just never die. Unless, you know, some really unlucky stuff happens. But yeah, I think Warlock's pretty nice too, because he kind of has a decent amount of build diversity. You can go like Life Drain, you can go Torture Mastery, or you can go like Blow of Corruption, Dark Reflection, Cactus Warlock. It got nerfed, but I think it's like okay still. I do think the strongest version of Warlock in solos is Caster Warlock with a Life Drain. And yeah, that build is just really, really good. It's mainly because of Hydra. Hydra is just insane in this game. Like the zoning and the scouting that you get from it. Definitely a S tier class. And then we have Wizard. And I put him in A tier. And it's kind of funny looking at this, like the placement of these classes. I just know that your average solo Wizard player looking at this tier list is going to be so mad that I put Wizard above Barbarian and Ranger. But I just think it's better. I really do. The Magic Missile nerf hurt quite a bit, because that spell in solos is like your bread and butter. Like, that's how you alleviate the problem that Ranger has of moving around the map. Because honestly, with Ice Armor and Reactive Shield, which I think you should always take in solos on Wizard, you're actually pretty tanky. So if you're geared on this class and you're playing well, I think you can do a lot of stuff. You can outplay people. I mean, we all know Wizard is like a really, really high skill cap class, probably the highest skill cap in the game. And he does have some problems, which is that into Warlock has a bunch of free magic resist and infinite sustain. So if you don't just one-shot him, then you kind of get owned. Rogue, I mean, obviously, even without Hide, just having Cutthroat makes it so hard for the Wizard to play the game. And was just pretty good in a fighter and bard, but I would argue when they have survival bows, it's not actually that good. Survival bow kind of like destroys Wizard. Yeah, if you just play a corner with survival bow, like, it's really, really hard for a Wizard to do anything, I'm not gonna lie. And the thing is, if they get poked once, like if they take one shot, it's just immediately, like, they're gonna look for a resub probably. But yeah, I think, let me double look over this list real quick. Yeah, I think I'm happy with the placement. This is probably what my solo tier list would look like. Keep in mind, I'm accounting like high roller. This is not for normals, by the way. This is for high roller with decent gear and a decent player playing the class. This is what I think the solo tier list is looking like for next season, unless obviously some big changes. All right, and let's let me refresh this for duos now. All right, for duos, I have Barbarian first of all, and I'm just throwing him into C tier. Barbarian in duos is pretty bad. Has no range. Same as in solos, you know, like kind of one-dimensional, just runs in. This class is just not very good in solos and duos, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'd say it's probably worse in duos. Because you just don't really bring anything to the team besides being a tanky frontline. But you're kind of just worse at doing that than a fighter, so class is pretty bad in duos. Bard, I'm gonna throw an S tier. I think Bard in duos is really, really good. I wouldn't say he's quite Thanos, but I would put him in S tier. I think he's solid class. Good utility for the team. You can play kind of like a more supportive style in the duos, or you can, you know, be the frontline and DPS, and yeah, it's just really solid. Then we have a Cleric. But Cleric, I'm leaning between A and B. I don't think it's that good though. I'd probably say B tier. It can be nice, but I just feel like in duos, most of the time it's better to have 2 DPS classes. And like playing Cleric and just supporting one person without that, just like a one-person pocket, like I don't think it's that good. It is decent, like don't get me wrong, it is decent. It's definitely playable. But I think in duos, most of the time you just prefer a different class. But it can work. Definitely has some strengths. The revive can be really nice if you clutch up on the Cleric. I think overall it's pretty weak. Fighter, I'm gonna throw probably in an A tier. Yeah, I'd put Fighter in A tier. I think it's pretty good in duos. I wouldn't say it's S tier, Thanos. It's pretty good, but it just doesn't feel like insane because it doesn't have as good of range as other classes. Like you might say, oh, Bard and Fighter both have like a crossbow, but like Bard also has survival bow and he just reloads faster, just naturally. So it's kind of, you know, he kind of just has better range. But I think Fighter is really good. It's really playable. It can be a good front line. I think like if you do play Fighter, you definitely just want a support of some sort, like probably Wizard or Cleric. Otherwise, I don't think it's that great. But overall, I mean, solid class. Then we have Ranger. I'm gonna put an S tier. I do think Ranger is really, really good in duos because you have a teammate that can cover your weakness, which is kind of moving around the map. You don't have to be the one walking in, so it's a lot better than in solos. And if you're good at the class in duos, I think you can kind of dominate. It's also really good into I think what some of the bus classes are, which we'll see soon. Overall, I'd say Ranger. I mean, honestly, just compared to the top classes, I'm not 100% sure. I might demote him to A tier. I think I actually will demote him to A tier for now, and we'll leave Bard and us by his lonesome. Then we have Rogue, and I'm putting Rogue below the Cleric. I do think it's better than Barbarian because you can kind of, at least you can play an annoying like poke rogue, or with creep you can kind of look for some flanks sometimes. Compared to Barbarian, I would say it's better. But Rogue doesn't really offer that much to his teammate, and I think overall it's just pretty weak in duos. You would probably just rather have like any other class for the most part than a Rogue on your team. I think the only time that it's like it would be like decent is if it's just 2 rogues, because then you can both just creep around the map together, which actually isn't too bad. But like other than duo rogue, I think the class doesn't really fit into any team comps that well. I think like Rogue Ranger is probably the second best, or Rogue Warlock is decent, but yeah, you just don't really bring much to the team. The Cutthroat is nice, but yeah, that's about it. Then we have Warlock, which I am gonna go ahead and throw an S tier. I think Warlock is really, really good in duos. I mean, as I said earlier, like Hydra is one of a kind ability. It's really, really good in this game, and yeah, I feel like Warlock in duos just he just has so much pressure, and you can kind of, it's nice because now that you have a teammate, like in solos, I would say it's really good, but it's also in duos it gets even better, to be honest, because you can run Phantomize and then you have someone you can actually like peel to. So if you're in a bad situation, you gotta Phantomize out. They can't just stay on you. They're gonna have to deal with your teammate who's gonna help, you know, protect you so you can get a reset. And yeah, I think it just has, I mean, it's just really high DPS. You can out sustain people. Or not, I wouldn't say really high DPS, but like consistent range damage is really nice in duos. Which is why I put the Warlock in S tier. Probably below Bard though. I'd say Bard is really insane. Then we have Wizard. And I would probably put Wizard. I think I'm putting Wizard in the S tier. It's just so the Wizard synergy with some of these classes is so nice. Like Wizard Fighter, Wizard Bard, Wizard Warlock, they're all really, really good. The only problem with Wizard is class is just kinda weak to range damage, and by kinda I mean really weak to range damage. So like these other classes, these like 4 classes in this square here, kinda can mess you up. Mainly the Bard, Fighter, Ranger though, because these 3 classes all have crossbow, or even worse, a longbow, which can like really destroy wizards. But I think Wizard is still an S tier because you can enable one class to just go beast mode. So like you go Wizard Bard, you can like send them in and then you're backup, so you're like half support, half DPS, which is really nice. It's the only class like that other than Bard. Like Bard, Wizard are both kind of like half support, half DPS. You can lean into one playstyle more if you want. But yeah, I'd probably put the Wizard in the S tier for duos. I don't think there's like a Thanos class in duos. I think it's like relatively well balanced. And yeah, I think I'm doing a second look over. Yeah, I think this looks pretty accurate. I'm gonna reset this now for trios. Alright, now for the trios list. First we have Barbarian. Throwing him in A tier. Pretty good class. For a very, very long time, Barbarian was like the trio's main carry. You just pick 2 supports, you buff them up, send them in. I think that is not as good actually anymore. I think it's like, it is really good, but it's just not as strong as it used to be. But this is the mode where Barbarian is the strongest for sure, in my opinion. You just pick 2 supports, you buff them, you send them in, and you know, he just kills everybody. It's pretty good. Only problem is that it's weak to what I think the other top classes comps are, which I'll show shortly. We have Bard, he's going in us. He's close to Thanos in trios as well, in my opinion, but we'll put him in us because you don't 100% need a Bard. But I think most of the time you're going to want a Bard. The Bard buffs are just really nice. I mean, Rousing on the team. Rousing Harmonic is so good. And Accelerando Allegro, obviously insane. Like, just has so much utility. More of a support class, I would say, in trios. In duos, you can be, like, kind of the DPSer. In trios, you're more of a support for the most part. But, you know, you can get active. You definitely can get active on this class. Really solid. Cleric also, S tier. And I used to not really like Cleric that much in trios because the problem with Cleric is if you miss like a clutch heal, it's like over. You can just lose instantly. But actually I would say Cleric is even maybe above Bard. Because Ruz is just so insane. Like, having Ruz. That ability in trios is just god tier. Because if you have good gear, you can get a Ruz off really fast, and you can win a fight off a quick reset with that. And obviously also, like, Sanctuary, insane ability. Earthquake. Like, Cleric has so many insane abilities. I think in trios is really, really good. And, like, almost every single comp is gonna want a Cleric. Really good class. Then we have Fighter. And I would probably put Fighter in B tier in trios. I don't think it's that great. For the most part, like, you would rather just buff up your Barbarian in Cinnamon rather than, like, buff up your Fighter in Cinnamon if you're playing, like, a buff ball comp. But actually, you know, I'm putting him in A tier. I'm putting him below Barbarian still, but like, you can play the buff ball Fighter, but you can also there's the classic Fighter, Cleric, and then Ranger or Bard comp, which is pretty good, to be honest. And I mean, it's like an okay class. I'd say most of the time, if people play him and they just play him to, like, go in, and if you're doing that, you probably just want to be on the Barbarian. But Fighter's a viable alternative, and you can play some other comps with the Fighter, which is pretty nice. So I'd throw him in A tier. We have Ranger. Ranger's pretty bad in the trios, I'm not gonna lie. Probably going in B. I don't know. I don't know if I want to put him in B or C. I'll probably go B tier, because, like, Ranger can work. Ranger can work, but it's gonna be hard. You have to be really good. You have to have the comp for it. You have to have, like, really good teamwork. Because if you have a Ranger, you have to play around the Ranger's strengths, like, specifically, like, very intentionally. And also, like, just having a Ranger on your team makes it kind of hard to push people in trios, because they can't really get in there. Like, what are they gonna, like, I mean, they kind of can, but, like, they can't actually, like, close the, you know, there's a door and they gotta go through and there's someone on the other side. It's probably not gonna work out. But I mean, you know, it's just the Ranger classic. Like, if they're landing their shots, the class is insane. I would say, like, on average though, even a good player playing it, it's just easier to play these other comps and win, or these other classes. Yeah, I'd probably throw him in the B tier. Then we have Rogue. Obviously, he's going in do not play this. You can make it work. Like, as I said, you can play any class in any mode, but Rogue in trios is just so horrible. It's just so horrible. The thing is, the only thing you can do on this class in trios is take hide and pray that the enemies just walk into you and you're invis. So it's really boring, and it's kind of just like you're praying that your opponents are bored and they just run in. So I mean, it's just awful. You don't really bring much to the team. Like, you do have Cutthroat, you know, as always, which can be good, but, like, yeah, this class sucks in trios. It's really bad. The thing is, like, if you don't play the hide build where you just AFK and, like, pray someone walks into you, then you're playing, like, double hand cross when trios. It's just worse than Ranger. Like, it's just infinitely worse than playing Ranger. Because you're playing Ranger, but with, like, 1/4 of the DPS and worse range as well, which is pretty horrible. Yeah, class sucks in trios. Then we have Warlock. I would say Warlock is probably in the B tier. You know, now that I look at this though, like, Warlock is quite a bit better than Ranger, so I'm putting Ranger in C tier. I changed my mind. Actually, I don't know. Or maybe I don't know. Yeah, I'll leave him in B. I think Warlock isn't great. There is the best, like, Warlock comp is just 3 Warlocks, because 3 Hydras can, like, really disrupt the team. It's kind of insane. But actually, you know what? I'm throwing him in A tier. Yeah, I think this looks better. Okay, he's A tier. Like, it's a hard. The comp is, like, really annoying, but to play against when you have triple Warlock, which is why that's the only reason I'm putting him in A tier, is that comp specifically, because that can be really hard to fight against. But it's kind of hard to kill people, especially if a team has a cleric. They can sustain for like really, really long. And if they get on you, like if they're, you know, they're playing buff ball and they get on top of you, it's kind of over. But I mean, Warlock has like a, you know, okay, like kind of consistent damage over time, and also in trios, you know, you can Phantomize, then you have 2 teammates that can protect you instead of 1 in duos, which is pretty good. But the problem with Warlock is you don't really offer utility to your team, and you also don't do that much DPS. So you're kinda just replaceable by a support or like an actual damage class for the most part. But I will say triple Warlock is really, really good. And it's really, really aids to play against. And it's pretty fun too. Go through him in A, and then Wizard straight into Thanos, let's be honest. Wizard in trios is just god mode. This class is the main carry, the all-star of the team. You enable your Wizard and he just destroys everything and everyone in his path. He has really good utility with haste, invis, even like ignite, light orb, like magic, lock. These spells are all like okay. And then obviously, I mean, chain lightning and trios. Spell is absolutely disgusting. Fireball, you can cut people's healing down. The class is yeah, just the, you know, the main character in trios for sure. And yeah, I think that settles the list here. And yeah, those are my opinions on the trios tier list, solos tier list, duos tier list going into next wipe. This could all change depending on the changes on the test server. We'll see what happens. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.